Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a great weekend. And after quite a wild week of trading, excited to bring you this weekend update video of the general stock market, the indices, ETFs, and a lot of the stocks that I like to chart and hopefully trade when the setups are great. I think I've got well over 20 names for you to look at. We're actually going to start with something interesting. You might be looking at this chart and saying, well, that doesn't look like what happened this week. And that's because this is a screenshot off my video from last weekend. So this is what I was projecting to happen in the S&P 500, a move down. I thought it was going to be a minute degree. And when I show you here, you're going to see we just had a deeper correction. So there were some significant count changes that I had to make that I will talk quite a bit about in the video. I want to show you one other one. And I think I've got this screenshot here for you. You're going to be curious. Maybe you can already pick it out. This is IWM. And what happened here on IWM? Well, it went a little bit higher than what I had anticipated. In fact, I think it put in an expanded flat move. We're going to talk about whether IWM is trying to convince us that there's another leg down coming on Monday or if this is done. Okay, so overall, my projections for this week were accurate. I didn't necessarily trade it well. I was short. I thought we might get the drop Monday, Tuesday, and then a run up through the big tech earnings. If I jump back to the S&P daily, but instead we had the opposite. We had the big sell-off that occurred after the earnings, and I guess you think about it, that would have been the move that would have been the most surprising and probably the most painful. So the question now is, are we done? Okay, but I want to put everything, as I always do, in the context of broader time frames. We had monthly charts and weekly charts that closed. And I want to try to offer what I think is some convincing evidence of the timing of how I think things are going to play out for the rest of 2021. So looking at a monthly chart here of the S&P 500 going all the way back to the financial crisis low, I think we're going to need a top rail touch in here. And I don't think that's going to happen until we can get into Q2 of 2021. So I've got a target about 4,300 on the S&P 500 to tag that rail. Now that's going to be a little bit less than a typical extension for wave 3. I have that as a smaller extension, and we're going to see how this projection plays out. It works really well for the channeling aspect of this. We're going to see how well this works out in actuality. But of course, I also want to point out to you, we had a pretty nasty weekly candle. So this is entirely an outside bearish candle, not only in an engulfing, but an entirely outside week. And there's a possibility that we have to include that we just put in a primary degree top. I'm not quite ready yet to go there because it did just retrace, as I would show on the daily, to a typical fib. This is just below the 24% fib. If we need more work on the downside, there is the next fib, and that would happen immediately on Monday. How would we distinguish the red from the black from the blue? Well, the black needs to move up right away, as I'll show you here in a little bit in the short term. The blue would have a spike low and a recovery. The red would just keep plummeting. And so we're going to know Monday is going to be crucial. In fact, this coming week is absolutely crucial for distinguishing some of these wave counts. Let me show you what that short-term setup looks like on the S&P. Is this a 1-2 or is that a bear flag? So that's the short-term question to be asked. And we're going to find out right away. Does it break down quickly to that further minor 4 target? Do we get back up inside this bull channel? And then do we start a new sequence of waves that I would have as a minor 5 of this intermediate 3? Now, as I work through the others, you're going to notice each indice ETF stock has its own unique count. You can't put the same Elliott wave degrees on everything. And I have QQQ further ahead. I have it progressing because of the way that it played out slightly differently over the last few years into a primary 3. And again, looking for a rail touch, as has been so accurate along this chart all the way through. I think it puts the QQQ at about maybe the 360 to 370 range by April to May. Okay, then I would anticipate kind of a slow grinding downwards to sideways primary wave that might not be any fun at all to be part of or to trade. Let me show you what that might look like on a weekly chart, where again, we're looking at an outside weekly bar. That's why I include the possibility that primary wave is already in. And if we see rapid selling over the next month, then we could see a primary 4 set. That's not my first count. This did again reach a typical minor 4 fib. It counts really well. 1, 2, 3, 4, needing a 5th leg up, which is what I'm calling for. And I don't think it's going to be soon. I think it's going to play out over the next 3 to 4 months. It did hold the 8-week EMA. Break down below that, you can see from the sell-off that occurred in September, and that's was the clue that we were going further. So until that happens this coming week, I'm not yet ready to go to these red counts. Let's look at the daily. So on the daily, there's that degree adjustment into a minor 4, and I think we probably kind of end up crawling along this rail like we did this rail towards this top. That's my projection moving out. And by a date, that says down there March 29th, that's too soon. I think this happens probably a month later. Okay, let's look now into IWM. IWM and XLF, I really like charting because I think they are charting in very, very similar ways. I have IWM in need of a primary top later in Q2 of this year as part of a cycle 5. It's a younger ETF, so I don't think it has yet filled a first full set of cycles. And if I take you now into IWM into the weekly, you're going to notice again a very bearish outside bar candle. Is the minor 4 in? Well, I had kind of alluded to that on the short term. It's close to this fib, and it's already put in shallow retracements all the way nearly through its move since March. So it is possible that this is in, but again, when I take you back to that short term, that looks a little bit bear flaggish to me. It's possible that we've got a truncated, this would be a minuet 5 that's completed minor 4, but I could also easily see just one quick plunge out that would get bought. That doesn't necessarily mean that S&P and tech is going to do the same. It might not. Just want to alert you to that possible short-term pattern there. Okay, I want to get you through till we get to individual names. XLF. So you can see my longer-term projection. And you're going to notice that it got rejected pretty harshly right at the former high, which would have been its all-time high, and down pretty hard. Okay, so concerning looking candle, on the monthly chart, that looks like either a bearish shooting star, not quite a gravestone joji, but it needs some quick recovery. I do still think, like IWM, it has an intermediate with the wave 4 down into a primary 1. So they've tracked so well together, I'm going to leave them together in their counts, which you'll also see here on the weekly. And I had alerted on Twitter that IWM and XLF were leading this sell-off, and that's exactly what we saw. Now, did we see a low? It's a typical wave 4 minor fib. Right above, this is the 13-week EMA, which is really good support for pullbacks. And if I show you on the daily, I want you to take note. We've got some daily RSI positive divergence on a closing low Friday, lower than Wednesday. So I like that as a short-term bottoming indicator. If financials have bottomed, I think IWM has bottomed. If small caps have bottomed, I think we've got that low in. So that's how I'm leaning. It's not a strong probability. I would say that we do have to consider at least the possibility that we get kind of a spike low. At this point, some of the red bear accounts I think are low probability, but could we go a little bit lower next week before recovery? It's certainly possible. And I want to take you in, and I hope that even if you don't like the ETF or name of what I'm showing, that you can pick up on something either from Elliott Wave or from channeling or indicators or TA. Look at the channeling from minute 1 through minute 3, a little bit of overthrow and a gap through, and we've got the minute 2 matching up with that minor 4. So I really like the channeling support here. This is a crucial technique to Elliott Wave. I don't necessarily use fib for timing. I use my channeling for timing. And a lot of times I will look at the fib extension or retracement based on horizontal pivots and my rails or my channels. So there is some evidence here as we scroll through the main index S&P into the ETFs that we do have a bottom. It's going to be very interesting to see what futures do overnight Sunday into the pre-market on Monday. Okay, let's now get into some individual names. I've got a lot here that I want to show you. I certainly hope that you don't mind. And I want to start with some big tech. So Apple, you're going to see that I have Apple in need of a primary 3 top before the Q2 of 2021 ends, and then what's going to be a frustrating sell-off. I do want to alert you to the possibility there's a chance that Apple could actually make a super cycle high. And this is an interesting possibility. Is it possible that Apple's innovation phase is over? If you follow Mark Minervini, a really fantastic Twitter follow, a super successful trader, had some tweets this week suggesting that that could be it, that innovation has moved on from Apple. I want to include that as at least a possibility that if we can tag this dashed rail, but then for the rest of the year into probably 2022, something even more surprising happens. It's a low probability count. I just want to alert us to that fact because by EW, it does actually count pretty well. Let me now get you into here. I want to get the weekly. You're going to see the significant count change. So Apple with its week 5% down, it negated a lot of the more bullish setups. So I had to go to a less bullish fib extension for its primary wave. I think that does match really well with the channeling. I think it matches well with the timing. That put the move as an intermediate low. So we're looking just for one last intermediate leg up onto and into a significant top here in Apple. You'll see that on the daily, and the significance of the move is it closed this open gap, which I had initially projected was in the middle of a nested 3 of 3 of 3, which is very bullish. When that closed, that changed my projection. So there's no gap of recognition except for what you have down here. Now that still is within this 3, but because we're not getting continued bullish action, that's evidence for me adjusting that count. So now this is still a sizable move. So let's not be disappointed in this. This is still, I believe, like 28% up. And would it be kind of poetic if this top just happens to coincide with earnings? So look at this earnings negative reaction. What if we actually get that primary top on earnings? That's been some of the patterns of these names. It wouldn't surprise me. I want to get you through 2 more monthly charts of some of the big boys. So Tesla. Now, I do think it's possible that some names top before the general market, and I've got some concerns about Tesla. I can't say for certain that I'm going to announce that it's going to top before the rest of the market, but I do have the possibility that we've got a primary degree top happening soon. Now, there are some bullish extensions I can show you on the daily chart that if this would be a minor 3 that's extending, we could get higher. So I do want to include that as a possibility. This, I think, imminent top that's already would say it's happened is very low probability at this point. Let me now get into here Tesla on the daily, and here's kind of that degree 4. If we go lower, I still have it as having put in a minor 3-4 with one last pop, but here's that more bullish count. So this is the count in purple that would take Tesla above 1,000. And I've got to say that based on what's happened, you've got to consider that as possibly equal weight. Just want to alert to the possibility that some names might top before the general market. Okay, I want to get you into one more monthly chart and then take you through some other names. So Amazon, I love the way that this channel here for Amazon goes all the way back to its first primary leg, which I believe was in 2007, has hit a cycle top, has hit an intermediate top. I think it's going to get hit again. Now, this is a very, very bullish target for Amazon, and there are other fib targets that are lower than that. I think if it can resolve decisively out of what I have as an intermediate degree triangle, we could see a very explosive move in Amazon. So let me get you into that weekly. It's tried to push the top of the range now 4 times, and it did close on the weekly just above that 8-week EMA. It's poised almost to the apex to break out. Here's one possible minor leg if we're going to get that top. But again, look at the conjunction of all these names that I think are projecting to tops, not imminent, but sometime in Q1. Tops don't happen when everyone is calling the bubble. They happen when people are much more euphoric and complacent, and there's actually a lot of bearishness out there right now, a lot of strange sentiment and negativity and anger about what's going on with Robinhood and GME and that pump and dump, and all of that's probably a little too pessimistic to set the top. So I look at that as a contrarian indicator that we still have some work to do. So Amazon, I think, put in a minor low. I did buy the close. So we're going to see how that works out. If we can get back up to the top and break through, it needs to make sure it's not a false one this time, but that's going to be the motivation for this one to get moving. Okay, so let's now get into here. That's going to take us all through the monthlies. Let's keep working through on this tab through our other big tech names. So Facebook, did Facebook put in a significant bottom? Well, it certainly hit a deep fib, and I've got the potential that it did. I didn't buy this name. Maybe some others did to make an aggressive play. We'll see what happens here on Facebook if I take you into the short term now through some of these. It's possible we've got an inverse head and shoulders and maybe a 1-2, but that could also be a bear flag. Just got to pay a little closer attention to it. Take you through Goog and Microsoft as well. 2 names I really like. So Goog held on Friday this 1809 low. It's crucial that it doesn't break 1792. If it does, we might actually have an early topping candidate in Google. So that would be close to this projection, and I actually have that as the completion of an intermediate 3 wave. So we'll see what happens. Let me show you on the short term on Goog that we've got what held as a nested 1-2. So I also bought the close on Goog. We're going to see if we can get one more big punching run up through and past earnings. And we'll see also that a nested 1-2 setup held in Microsoft. So this is actually a degree submenu at 4, but it's holding its nested 1 and 2, unlike Apple that broke it. And I've got some ambitious targets. Microsoft had really, really good earnings surprise. So I'm optimistic that we do see continued run-ups here. Let me show you that because it's interesting on the short term that you've got right here. I'd like to see that 200 period 15-minute MA hold on a back test, so I bought that close as well. So looking to get movement up. Very, very interesting as you look at some of these setups. Enough really good setups out there for me to say, nah, I don't think I can be super bearish. I think there's a decent chance we go up. Let me take you through a plethora now of names. So take a look at Boeing. And what I want you to see is the similarity of bull flag to bull flag. And I don't think Boeing's done. I mean, I know if you take a look at its earnings, it was the worst earnings ever for Boeing. And can we keep cutting down to the bottom of the flag? We can. We would be looking for a break up and out. Let me show you what happened if I just drag this over. Look at what happened the last time at the very end of the other bull channel. It just gapped and never looked back. So I am very curious to see if this type of fractal behavior repeats. Do we get a gap and it just doesn't look back? That might surprise a lot of people, might actually be the winning trade. Okay, so Alibaba, I think it has put in, like many of the indices, a minor 4. I've got that moving up to complete a fifth wave into an intermediate, but I am not expecting all-time highs in Alibaba. I've got a rail resistance in the same timing as my other projections into another cycle low, actually to complete that. So intermediate, a short-term bullish, intermediate, not so much. Long-term Alibaba, I'm bearish. Okay, beyond, what an incredible week. Up 26+%. And I've had to update this by degree. I know that that number looks ridiculous, but look, it already went up well over $100 in just the span of a month. So let's not say it's not possible. I have beyond tracing in, like many names you've already seen, a minor 4, looking for a big push. And then in the short term here, did we get a 1-2 that just held? Could that have been the second mouse move? Well, I'm going to look for a sub-degree move. I didn't buy, so could we get up and pull back? That's the one that I want to try to get in on to hit those further targets. Okay, so pens. I've been bearish on this one for a while. Why I didn't short it, I just don't know. We had the spike break through and a close just right at the 8-week EMA. It's interesting to see when you look. I've got it as a primary 4 and one more move up. That just matches what I'm showing you with the rest of the names. But I circled this setup here because this is a preview of what's to come for bearish setups. That when you see what I call that knife through butter slice through the MAs, and then you see here a back test of them, when the market rolls over, this is where you short to catch the next leg. Now, I didn't do it. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I actually think there's a chance that wave is in. I just wanted to alert you to that pattern setup. You had it with some rail resistance. You can use it with MA resistance when markets turn over. Another name I like, NVDA. Take a look at the weekly. It's got a primary 3 top right in the same time frame of what I'm talking about. I think this sideways consolidation does break. I think it has to in order for the S&P to get to the targets that I'm talking about. And if I get you into the short term, this is one of the few names that held an inverse head and shoulder setup. I also bought this close. So did we see a set of all the way nested to the micro level? Okay, that's what I was anticipating. And, I haven't traded January aggressively. So I did take the chance on some of these setups here. And we're going to see whether I get smoked or whether it pays off. Another name, really like ROKU. It's got, again, you're seeing this consistently over and over and over. These big names, they will top together. Some will top early, but most will top together. This was a bearish weekly candle, and it would have been one to short. an 8% down move. I've got that within ROKU as a minor 2. So there's also a more bearish count that would have it retracing down to maybe 350. Would be pretty painful if you're still holding it. Ultimately think ROKU can get into the 500s. I know that seems ambitious, but that's how the fib progresses with some timing and rails. So on the short term, it did hold a nested 1-2. So will that hold, or is this a bear flag that's going to break down? I want to include that on the charts. Very, very interesting to watch. How about TDOC? So again, I've got it as a significant top. It's a cycle degree. Each count is unique, but a lot of things coinciding for the April to May time frame. You can watch my metals miners video as well, and you're going to see the same thing. I think that consistency is key across all sectors if this is actually going to happen. Interestingly, TDOC with a weekly gravestone doji at a potential cycle 3 top. I don't think it's in. I think it continues with the rest of the market. I just want to point that out. That's not a good looking weekly candle. That's the kind of topping candle that we really don't want to see. But what I want to point out is look at some of these classic setups. So a bull pennant breakout, bull flag breakout, bigger bull flag. Did it just break out? I want to see a move up in another back test because it failed in here and it failed in here. I want to see that move up. Maybe it hits this 200 period MA back test, and that's what I would be looking for early in the week. Okay, last set of names here for you. I know I've got a lot. I certainly hope you don't mind. These are in this tab. Let's look at space, SPCE. So I think minor 3, a minor 4. Is it done? Maybe. We got a breakout here. It could go a little bit lower. I've got really, really ambitious targets for SPCE all the way up into the 60s. And you saw up in here, there's even crazy high targets that would put it up near 100. So we'll see massive movement this week, up 29%. DraftKings, another setup that I like. So we're kind of climbing this rail, close above the 8-day EMA. Take a look at the setup. I think because a lower low was put in on Friday as compared to Thursday, we got an expanded flat for our minute 2, and I've got targets on DraftKings eventually making an intermediate top at some point in April into that May time frame. Home Depot. Okay, really interesting on Home Depot. Still trying to get out of this massive consolidation. This is kind of the look of what I think you can expect in most things in the second half of 2021. Maybe not quite as wide a range and maybe more downward, but frustrating range-bound movement. But if you can play it bottom to top, you might actually be able to do a lot of swing trading. So that's a possibility to consider for later on this year. For now, is it a nested 1-2? So we look short term. If 267.67 holds, that could be a minuet 2. There's also the possibility that this is a name that tops early. So I want to include with HD the possibility of a 1, 2, 3, 4 ending diagonal. Just some things. We've got to be flexible and adaptable as we consider over the next few months. We're approaching what I think will be significant tops. Now, let's get into, we got to do Z last. Let's do FSLY, another name I really like. How about kind of a double cup and handle pattern here? Is it done with its 1-2 move? So on the short term, possible that this is kind of a shallow 38% fib, maybe a 1-2 and looking for a rail break. And I did front run this, anticipating this rail to break and move up aggressively. And you can see, I've got great looking targets into that April-May time frame. Netflix, I still like it. Still hanging in a 1-2, 1-2. I think yet to complete a wave 3. Again, into a significant primary topping target. And big bull flag, deep wave 4, it held. And are we going to get a 1-2, maybe a breakout back test and a move up? Have that one on your radar. There might still be some gas in the tank for Netflix. We like to end with the stocks A to Z, and Zoom is our Z. We got that primary 2 correction in off divergence, a minor 1. This is nearly to the penny, a 62% fib. And what we're looking for now is, could we get that second mouse move? So could we get a 1 with a 2 pullback? Maybe it goes all the way up to that 200 period in May before a pullback. That's what I want to see. That would be my entry. Otherwise, a bull flag break and back test would be the other great entry. And then this target here, I want to show you the importance of horizontal pivot resistance. I've been harping on this for a long time. If I take you all the way back into September, this 420 area was the gap up breakout that fueled the last big run. And then the period of a false breakout right at that level. Rejection, sell-off, rejection, sell-off. Didn't quite get there. That's why I think my first minute topping target is going to be right at that number. So even if you didn't like all the names, I hope you picked up on something from an EW or from a channeling or a TA indicator setup. As I've expressed, and I hope you've seen, I don't think there's reason to call for the sky to fall. There's still a lot of really good setups out there. We could get a spike low on Monday. I mean, that's what Zoom would suggest. This could happen with a general market spike. In the S&P, it would just be a slightly lower minor 4 low, but that could get bought aggressively. We could also just move right up. We've got those red counts in play in case we just get a smash gap down lower. So very exciting and interesting. Thanks for your follows. Thanks for your likes. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks for your comments and questions. Hope you have a great weekend.